The rain was relentless, pounding the cracked pavement outside the Grandview Mall, where Amara stood under a tattered umbrella, her candy tray balanced precariously on one arm. Her voice, soft but steady, called out, "Gum, chocolates, lollipops, 2 for $1." Most shoppers hurried past, their eyes averted, clutching their bags as if her presence was a smudge on their day. Hey you! Hit that like button, subscribe, and drop your city in the comments. Where are you watching this from? Amara's hands were chapped, her sneakers soaked through, but she smiled at every passerby, even the ones who scoffed. At 27, she'd been here for 3 years, ever since her father's medical bills drained their savings. The mall's neon lights glowed above, a world of warmth and wealth she could only glimpse from the outside. A teenage girl, maybe 15, paused, fishing a crumpled dollar from her pocket. "You're always here," she said, almost accusingly. Amara nodded, handing her 2 lollipops. "Gotta keep the lights on somehow." The girl hesitated, then slipped an extra dollar into Amara's hand. "Don't tell my mom." That small act stuck with Amara, a flicker of kindness in the gray drizzle. By nightfall, her tray was nearly empty, but her heart wasn't. She tucked the extra dollar into a tin can labeled Dreams, hidden in her backpack. The mall security guard, Reggie, waved as she packed up. "You're tougher than half these suits in here," he said, his voice gruff but kind. Amara laughed, but her chest tightened. Tough didn't pay the bills piling up at home. As she walked to the bus stop, the mall's glass doors reflected her silhouette, a woman who refused to break, even when the world seemed to want her to. That night, in her tiny apartment, she counted her earnings, $23.47, enough for her father's medication, but not much else. She stared at the tin can, now holding $87.12 after months of saving. "One day," she whispered, "I'll be inside that mall, not just outside it." The dream felt impossible, but Amara clung to it like a lifeline. Every morning she returned to her spot, her tray a little heavier, her smile a little brighter. She didn't know it yet, but one of those hurried shoppers was watching her, someone whose life she'd touch in a way that would change everything. The Grandview Mall was a microcosm of indifference. Its polished floors and glittering storefronts, a stark contrast to Amara's weathered tray of candies. Shoppers rushed by, their eyes skimming over her like she was part of the scenery, a fixture, not a person. Some days, a man in a suit would mutter, "Get a real job," as if her hustle wasn't work. Others, like the teenage girl from last week, would linger, curious or kind, but they were rare. Amara's hands trembled as she arranged her candies, not from the cold, but from the weight of exhaustion. Her father's condition was worsening, and the hospital bills were a relentless tide, yet she refused to let bitterness take root. She'd chat with Reggie, the security guard, or slip a free lollipop to a crying toddler, her small acts of kindness a rebellion against the world's apathy. One afternoon, a woman in a navy blazer stopped, her eyes sharp but not unkind. "You're here every day," she said, buying a pack of gum. Amara nodded, wary. Rain or shine. The woman, Clara, introduced herself as a small business consultant who worked with mall tenants. "Ever thought of selling more than candy?" she asked. Amara's laugh was brittle. "With what money?" Clara didn't push, but she left her card, tucked into a $5 bill. "Think about it." Amara stared at the card, her heart racing. Was this pity or possibility? She didn't know, but she kept the card, tucking it into her tin can with the $87.12. That night, she couldn't sleep, her mind spinning with what-ifs. The next day, a group of teens mocked her setup, one tossing a penny at her tray. "Charity case," he sneered. Amara's jaw tightened, but she didn't flinch. Reggie stepped forward, his voice low. "Move along, kid." The teens scattered, but the sting lingered. Amara wiped her eyes, refusing to let them see her break. She didn't know Clara was watching from a cafe across the plaza, noting her resilience. Days turned into weeks, and Amara kept Clara's card close, unsure if it was a lifeline or a false hope. She started noticing patterns in her sales. Chocolate sold better on weekends, gum during lunch hours. She jotted notes in a battered notebook, dreaming of something bigger. Van. Mall's lights still taunted her, but now they felt a little closer. Clara returned on a crisp morning, her blazer swapped for a sweater, her demeanor less formal but no less focused. Amara was mid-pitch, 2 lollipops for $1, when Clara approached, holding a coffee and a notebook of her own. "I've been watching you," Clara said, no preamble. Amara froze, her tray wobbling. "Not in a creepy way," Clara added with a laugh. "You're good with people, even the rude ones. That's rare." Amara shrugged, unsure how to respond. Clara handed her a flyer for a local small business workshop, free for first-timers. "I run it. You should come." Amara's first instinct was to say, no. Workshops were for people with money, not candy sellers. But Clara's eyes held no judgment, only expectation. "I can't afford to miss a day here," Amara said, gesturing to her tray. Clara nodded. "Bring your candies. Sell them outside. But show up." That Saturday, Amara stood outside the community center, her tray slung over her shoulder, nerves jangling. Inside, Clara taught budgeting, marketing, and networking, words that felt foreign but sparked something in Amara. She sold $15 in candy that day, but the real gain was knowledge. Clara pulled her aside after. "You're not just selling candy, Amara. You're building trust. That's your brand." The word brand stuck with Amara, a seed planted in her mind. She started experimenting, offering samples to kids, chatting longer with regulars. Her tin can savings grew to $142.37. One night, she Googled Clara's name, discovering she'd helped launch 3 mall stores. Hope flickered, but so did doubt. Could someone like her really break into that world? Clara's workshops became a weekly ritual, and Amara soaked up every lesson, her notebook filling with ideas for a candy store of her own. She didn't notice Clara quietly mentoring her, slipping her extra resources or introducing her to vendors. The turning point came when Clara invited her to pitch a business plan to a local entrepreneurs group. Amara's hands shook as she presented her idea, a cozy candy shop with homemade treats, a place where everyone felt welcome. The group's feedback was tough but fair, and one investor, Mr. Patel, lingered after. "You've got heart," he said. "Polish the numbers, and I'll consider backing you." Amara's notebook was now a lifeline, pages crammed with budgets, supplier contacts, and sketches of a store with colorful jars lining wooden shelves. She worked harder, selling candy from dawn to dusk, saving every penny. Her tin can hit $300, then $500. Clara guided her, helping refine her business plan. "You're not just selling candy," Clara said one evening over coffee. "You're selling joy." Amara blushed, but internalized the words. She started making her own fudge at home, testing recipes on Reggie and her neighbors. The fudge sold out in hours, and her confidence grew, but the mall was still a fortress. Leasing a store required capital she didn't have. She pitched to Mr. Patel again, this time with a detailed plan and samples of her fudge. He was impressed, but cautious. "The mall's management is tough," he warned. "They don't take risks on newcomers." Amara's heart sank, but she didn't quit. She started a small online shop, selling her fudge through social media. Clara helped her set up. Orders trickled in, then poured. A viral post about her story, candy seller turned entrepreneur, caught the mall manager's eye. He called her in, skeptical but curious. "Why should we lease to you?" he asked. Amara stood tall. "Because I know this mall better than anyone. I've been outside it for years." He didn't commit, but her words lingered. Clara connected her with a loan officer, and Amara secured a small business grant. Her savings, now $1,200, covered initial inventory. Mr. Patel agreed to co-sign the lease, swayed by her persistence. The day she signed the contract, Amara stood outside the mall, her tray empty for the first time. She wasn't selling candy anymore. She was building a future. The store's lease was for a tiny corner unit, wedged between a jewelry kiosk and a shoe store, but to Amara, it was a palace. She spent weeks painting walls, a soft yellow, installing shelves, and filling jars with her homemade fudge, lollipops, and chocolates. Clara helped with branding, designing a logo that read Amara Sweet Haven. Reggie sneaked in after hours to help hang lights, grumbling but grinning. The mall's shoppers, once indifferent, now whispered about the candy seller turned store owner. Some scoffed, "She'll fail in a month," but others, like the teenage girl from years ago, now 18, stopped by to wish her luck. Amara's hands shook as she arranged the final display, her savings now down to $50 after startup costs. The grand opening was set for a Saturday, and she'd barely slept the night before. What if no one came? What if the mall's glitz overshadowed her little shop? At 9 a.m., she unlocked the door, her heart pounding. Reggie was first in line, buying a bag of fudge. "For my wife," he said, winking. By noon, a small crowd had gathered, drawn by the viral post and Clara's marketing. Mr. Patel arrived, shaking her hand. "You proved me wrong," he said. The teenage girl, now a college student, bought a lollipop and left a note. "You inspired me." Amara's eyes welled up, but she kept smiling, handing out samples, her voice warm as she greeted every customer. By closing, she'd sold $800 worth of candy, a number that felt like a miracle. The mall manager stopped by, his skepticism softened. "You're changing the vibe around here," he admitted. Amara nodded, too overwhelmed to speak. The store's success wasn't instant, but it was steady. Amara worked 12-hour days, tweaking recipes, learning inventory management, and chatting with every customer. Her warmth turned strangers into regulars, and her story spread. Local news ran a feature, from sidewalk to storefront, Amara's sweet journey. The piece went viral, bringing crowds from beyond the mall. Amara hired the teenage girl, now named Lily, part-time, teaching her the recipes she'd perfected. Clara remained a mentor, but Amara was finding her own voice. She paid off her loan faster than expected, and Mr. Patel became a silent partner, investing in a second store. But challenges lingered: the mall's high rent, a leaky pipe in the back room, a competitor opening nearby. Amara faced each with the same grit she'd shown outside the mall. She started a loyalty program, rewarding regulars with free samples, and hosted kids' candy-making classes, turning her store into a community hub. One evening, her father, now stronger, visited the store, his eyes shining. "You did this, Amara," he said, touching a jar of fudge. She hugged him, tears falling. The mall, once a distant dream, was now her home. Shoppers who'd once ignored her now lined up, their smiles a quiet apology. Amara didn't hold grudges. She built bridges instead. Her store wasn't just a business. It was proof that kindness and hard work could rewrite a life. Years later, Amara's Sweet Haven was a mall staple, its yellow walls a beacon of warmth. Amara, now 32, stood behind the counter, her apron dusted with sugar, watching Lily teach a group of kids to make lollipops. The store had expanded, taking over the unit next door, and a second location was thriving across town. Clara had retired, but visited often, calling Amara her proudest success. Reggie, now head of mall security, still bought fudge weekly. The mall manager, once skeptical, now sent new tenants to Amara for advice. She'd become a mentor herself, helping other small vendors navigate the mall's cutthroat leasing process. Her tin can, now empty, sat on a shelf behind the counter, a reminder of the $87.12 that started it all. Amara's father was healthier, living in a new apartment she'd bought with her earnings. One quiet evening, Lily asked, "How'd you keep going back then?" Amara smiled, handing her a lollipop. "I believed in second chances. For me, for others." Her story had spread beyond the mall, inspiring a scholarship fund she'd started for young entrepreneurs. As she locked up that night, the mall's lights dimmed, but her store glowed. Outside, where she'd once stood in the rain, a new vendor sold flowers. Amara slipped her a free piece of fudge. "Keep going," she said. The vendor nodded, and Amara walked home, her heart full, knowing she'd turned her dream into a legacy that would outlast her.